Hello and welcome to a preview of Carotic. This is a game that I've been working on during my master's degree and it is now almost finished. I say almost because there's always bugs and you always have to fix them. What is Carotic? Carotic is a multiplayer game that can be played with up to 4 people, 2 to 4 people with several different game modes. And the first game mode that we are looking at is the hide and seek game mode. It is pretty much the core of what Carotic is. It's a hide and seek with cars. As you can see, 4 players drive cars and the other cars are NPC cars. And as the player IDs disappear, the players need to find, well, the other players that are playing with them. And just now a player at the top got 5 points for correctly finding another player. You may see their player IDs flashing up. This is because there's a button that if you lose your car and you no longer know which car am I, you press the button and the player ID shows, which is good and bad because other players can see that as well. And if you're not fast and if you lose yourself, other players might see that little flashing and they will find you, dash into you and destroy you. Destroying players will give you 5 points. It's always the case in every game mode. The goal is to obviously get as many points as possible. Destroying NPCs doesn't give negative points, it also doesn't give positive points, obviously. I did that because I thought it was quite harsh to award negative points just for boosting around, which boosting is like, it's pretty hard to control as well, so yeah. And that's this game mode, I guess. Maybe a little developer insight as we watch the gameplay, which there are trees flying around. Wow. The game started as an asynchronous multiplayer game where one player would play a bus and 3 other players played cars, and the bus player had to play against the car players and vice versa. But that just didn't work out very great because asymmetric gameplay is pretty dang hard to implement and to properly do, because it always seems unfair towards one of the parties, and to get the balancing right just proved impossible, especially for like one person. As we approach the end of the game, as you can see at the top of the level is a little timer which counts down from usually 5 minutes to 0, and if that reaches 0, the game is over and there will be a credit scene in 3, 2, 1 pretty much now. Perfect. And then you can see who won, who got the most points. There is a nice indicator which game mode you just played on the right with a little graphic, and then you can select play again or go into the main menu, which I will do. And then we will look at the next game mode, which is reach the goals. This was the first enhancement, I'll call it enhancement of Carotic, which spawns little goals for players to reach, and they get 5 points if they reach. And that's everything new that happens in this game mode. Players found this mode especially appealing because there is now a common incentive to go towards these goals, and that makes players group up much more, and it's much easier to identify players by looking at other cars and looking for obvious player behavior to reach that goal and to get those juicy points. And the in playtests, players have always said that they really like this game mode because of that. And yep, if you reach the goal, you can see those nice, cool animations playing. And that's pretty much it. And then we can see another player like driving across the bridge, and an NPC just pushing the NPC along with him, and the NPC drives back. They usually don't do that. They would usually get stuck. That's a pretty rare occurrence right there. And another player is trying to cross the bridge, and they have been spotted but not dashed. And they're circling and circling. Are they going to get each other? Yes or no? It seems they've given up. Oh, these circles are more important, I guess. So they're like these two kinds of players here. The ones that are really focused on the circles and trying to reach the circles as fast as possible, and then there are these others which try to find people reaching circles, but also at the same time trying to reach circles. And I myself, I'm one of these. I can't really multitask that great, so I focus on the circles because they give just as many points as killing players, and it's easier to get to them. But that makes me much more vulnerable towards attacks, and I've gotten dashed into so many times, and I was like, whoa, what just happened there? Somebody has spotted me, I guess. And that's a really fun part about this game. You're just driving around and minding your own business, and you want to reach that circle to get those juicy points, and then just bam, you're dead. And that's pretty funny. You most of the time you didn't expect it, and you most of the time you didn't realize that there is a player car right in front of you, and that's going to dash into you. We can see nice paint graphics, and we can also see that if two players reach the same amount of points, they get the same ranking. So we got place 4, place 2, 2, and place 1. Next up, destroy the town. This game mode's... I'll explain the game mode and then I'll tell you a little bit of history about it. So in this game mode, it's similar to the Collect the Circles game mode, as there is one common goal, which is to find, or it's easy to see, I guess, to get to the buildings with the X and above them and the little +5 icon, and they're also outlined in the same color as the building. And you have to, well, you press X or E or A or X are the dash buttons, and then you dash and you ram into it, and then it explodes. And trees! I love these trees. And as you can see, I spawn destructed buildings and a few particles, and that's that game mode. So it's similar to the reach the goals, as I said. One common reward or incentive, and yep. So this game mode evolved from a completely, like, it's not completely different, but quite different. There used to be like events in the game instead of game modes, and the game used to be static. Instead of selecting game modes, you just played the game. It was one game and one game mode only, and there were these events happening at random times, random events, and one of the event was the Chaos Mode event. And in the Chaos Mode event, all buildings got destructible. So every single building on the map, which the map looked completely different, by the way, all the buildings on the map got marked as destructible, and players could now dash into them to destroy them, which led to a huge amount of particles and destroyed game objects and shattered things and stuff and things, and the trees are just happily flying through the air. It's glorious. So maybe a little bit on the technical side. How did I achieve that? The game is made with Unity and not with Unreal. In Unreal, you would just plug a destruct object on there, I think it's called, and then it does that thing for you. But Unity, not really. I didn't want to create a script that automatically cuts my mesh. So what I did was I exported the mesh into Blender, and in Blender there is a nice feature called fracture. And with the fracture feature I created myself a second model which was shattered. That what you can see, the buildings that I have in the scene are the fixed buildings. They are not shattered yet. And as the player dashes into the building registers a collision, deactivates itself, and activates a prefab that was spawned as the scene is loading, which contains the destructed game object. And that one has a destruct script attached, which just destroys itself. And what I'm doing is I'm giving all of those shards a collider and some physics, so that physics work, and I set all of them to kinematic so that the building doesn't collapse on itself, because that happens in Unity. And if the game object gets destroyed, so as soon as it gets spawned basically, I give all of the rigid bodies some force in some random direction, and I think it's even called apply explosive force or something like that, and then the building just goes kaboom. And there used to be something called toughness, which you could drive into the base of the building, and based on the percentages of how many rigid bodies you set to not kinematic anymore, the building would then destroy based on that amount, which was, yeah, toughness. So the buildings were harder to destroy at the start, but that wasn't fun for the players. They just wanted to drive into them and then see them get destroyed every time, instead of, why didn't it get destroyed this time? And that's I don't like. They didn't like that. Next game mode. The next game mode is the Carotic mode. This is one of my, if not the favorite game mode. It's quite different from the other game modes, I must say, which makes it really special. As you can see already, it's not like the other game modes already. The music is weird, there's rain, everything is dark, the lights in the scene are now on, there's thunder going on, and what the frick is coming out of the water over there? Well, if you couldn't have guessed it from the title of the game mode, Carotic, there is a giant kraken attacking the town. So this is really fun in my opinion. As I've said, there used to be this chaos mode which sets all buildings to destructible. I'm basically doing the same here, so all the buildings you see are destructible right now. And the kraken just goes around and it wants to slap all those buildings into thousands of pieces. And that's what krakens do, I guess. The goal for the player is to defend the town as well as they can, which means dashing into the kraken to make it retreat into the water, but you can't kill the kraken, so to say. Like you can't completely get rid of it. It will always respawn. And there are 4 sites to spawn, and once you dash into it you get like 10 points, and then it will retreat. It might also happen that you can't reach the kraken, before it retreats, or nah, it might happen that you can't reach the Kraken. In that case, it will retreat and it will move. And you can see that right now, the Kraken on the way back, it's moving right now. And that's what happens if you don't dash into it. It will move on a given line to a random location. It's not actually random, it's always the same, but it's like pseudo-random, I guess, depending on where the Kraken spawn. But anyways, then it will attack again, and then you can dash into it again. Two funny things. First of all, if there's thunder in here and lightning, and if the lightning strikes the ground and a player just happens to be there, the player gets destroyed. It's glorious. And if the player is below the Kraken, as the Kraken slaps the ground, the player obviously also has to die. It just was, that was a no-brainer for me. That just had to happen. And another thing is that even if there are no more buildings the Kraken could destroy, the game mode still continues playing. But as you can see, with 4 players, we've managed to defend the town. Well, not that great. I mean, there weren't many buildings left, but what can you do? You can't kill the Kraken before it slams, so that's fine. Next game mode, the free-for-all race. This game mode that's just another like completely different one, based like that. If the other one, if Carotic wasn't different enough, this game mode is for you. Like, it's something completely else. It's a 2 to 4 player race where players get to decide what they want to do to annoy other players. As you can see right at the start, one of the houses blew up. That was me while playing, and that was the first thing I did because that's a really handy shortcut. And what you can do is you can let your player ID fly around and select different events that can play, and you select them with the X button, which right at the top right of the screen there's like this little menu which tells you what to do and what are the controls, and the other players are doing a pretty okay-ish job, I'll say. Like player 1 and 3 are not really doing anything with the events. But anyway, you can do all these events. Right now there's a bus driving around, and that thing is the best thing ever. It's called the boss bus. And that bus is driving and driving and driving, and nothing is gonna stop in its way. And it's going to destroy all the cars. Which there are 2 of them. There's one on the bottom right and one on the top left. There's also a let's call it boss boat. I'm not sure about the boss, but let's go with that. Which the player 1 is hovering above that right now, but not activating. Now, right now, cool. And you can see the boat and the mode is on the street, and just and then a player decides to just crash into it. And you can see the boat will jump up, drive along, and then go back into the water. There are multiple cars that you can activate, so they drive to the street and annoy other players because you can't drive through them and you can't dash into them, and they're just annoying you. They're obstacles basically. There's also this crane over there. If you were to drop the crate on the crane, and it would drop right there, and it would, if it were to drop onto a player, the player would explode, and basically you can't get past that thing. And you can see a player just completed his or her final lap, and then there is another scoreboard which also looks a bit different based on your time and rounds, etc, etc. And that is Carotic for you. I hope you like this game. It's not released yet. I worked hard on it. It's a little passion project of mine, let's call it like that. I used to not like it, but now I really love it. So if you like to play, just wait a bit. It's going to release soon.